Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm here to talk with Jacqueline O'Neill, who is the Vice President and Head of Product at Blockparty, an NFT platform. So Jacqueline, I've looked into your history, your work as an artist, and the work you've done with a lot of larger traditional institutions, in the world of finance even, JP Morgan. And I wanted to start with a fairly obvious question, which is just what brought you to NFTs? You've been an artist for a long time. Like I said, you've worked with these traditional institutions, and what brought you to this kind of new technology, this new fusion of art and technology, NFTs, that's only really taken off in the last year and a half?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. And also thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. So I guess I'll start somewhat at the beginning. So I've always been an artist, a bit more of a visual artist working across different media. And I really worked in the architecture planning and sort of real estate world, largely with cultural institutions in and around New York City. I did that for a number of years, and pretty much in 2016, I was looking for a bit of a change to basically explore more technologically focused work into my life. I was craving some innovation, a little more of a fast pace. And so I was looking at a variety of different verticals connected to the arts that I could go down there. And I came across blockchain technology and started exploring there. I found a company called Chronicled. They basically use Internet of Things, IoT, so sensors and devices, to give digital identities to physical objects and place those on a blockchain. So I ended up working with them because they were doing that with physical art, as well as a number of different verticals. So actually during my time there, I did quite a lot of different things, being a relatively small tech startup. And we actually explored a lot of different verticals, from pharmaceuticals to supply chain to cold chain, kind of like luxury goods, cannabis, you name it, we looked at it. And yeah, did just really looking at a big question that came up a lot and still comes up today, is like, do you really need a blockchain for this? But we can get to that later. But yeah, so I was with them for about a year. This was pre-NFTs. NFTs weren't really a thing yet then. It was really just basically accounting for registering transactions on blockchains. I actually don't even know if Ethereum existed at that point, or is sort of coming to be around that time. Actually it did. It had just come out, I think, in 2015, 14. Yeah. So that was new. That was pretty nascent then. And yeah, NFTs, we didn't even have some of the ERC standards that we have today that have since been coined NFTs. So I worked with them for about a year, and then I spun out a subsidiary of theirs to exclusively focus on smart art tagging for physical artworks on a blockchain using their tech called Blockchain Art Collective. I did that for about a year and a half, continued doing my own artwork. And I think the thing that really hooked me, really two things that hooked me. The first was that I just saw sort of inherent value for both the creator and the collector of especially fine art, of tracking that over a long period of time and being able to trace that provenance and how that benefits everyone participating in the economy of that object. So that was like a very straightforward, not super sexy, but I was just like, there's, inherent value there. That makes sense to me, and can benefit multiple parties. And I think the second piece that really spoke to me was sort of the intertwined technological and social ethos of decentralized technology, because sort of the people to actually succeed, it must be distributed. And I really liked that as a sort of a societal inclusionary empowerment technology. I thought that was very cool. And then I came on board with Blockparty, met Vlad, the CEO of Blockparty, Vlad Ginsberg, during my time at Blockchain Art Collective. I put together a panel during Art Basel in 2018, I think it was, to talk about art and blockchain. I kept in touch, and I started in November of 2020. It's been almost 2 years being with Blockparty.
Okay.
So time flies, and during that time, it has been a whirlwind, to say the least.
Wow, that was an impressive response. I did not expect that you had been involved with the technology, with blockchain technology for as long as you have. That's great to hear. I feel like a lot of people who have come to NFTs are not really as familiar with the technology as you are, so I'm sure that gives you a sort of leg up in this world. So that's very cool. What I wanted to ask now is, you're the head of product and the VP of Blockparty. I wanted to know if maybe you could give us a little bit of an overview of what exactly Blockparty does.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Blockparty, I would say, is unique in the sense, particularly unique actually, in the sense that it's been really open to evolving as a company and what it provides and responding to the market. And it's been around since 2017, before I joined, certainly. So they were doing using event ticketing as a use case for blockchain technology for a few years. Then in sort of the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, again, before I came on, decided to pivot more exclusively into a marketplace for music and art focused NFTs. And with a particular emphasis on making it really easy for anybody. So you don't even necessarily have to know what MetaMask is. You technically didn't even really have to know what an NFT or blockchain was to do it. You could go on, sign up with your email, use your credit card, mint something, and really super easy. We recognize that there were some sort of long-term pitfalls with that, especially after I came on. So we did continue to build out that marketplace, and ultimately felt that there were a lot of limitations, because some of the things that made it so easy, given the tools we were working with at the time that had been developed thus far to make things so easy, basically made it harder for us to interface with all these external platforms that were and tools that were popping up. And we really wanted to be more, not necessarily exclusively open source, but making it really easy to truly transact in this decentralized way. So we were using a custodial blockchain with bridges out to Ethereum and Flow, which allowed you to have self-custody of your NFT at any given time, which is great, because again, that's part of self-sovereignty is a big part of this promise of this technology. But essentially we decided, the foundational elements of that platform were not really going to cut it for how we were seeing creators come on, evolve, move out into using these more truly decentralized platforms. So Blockparty also is affiliated with NFT Protocol that I'll mention briefly. It's not a piece of the business that is sort of exclusively under my purview. There's a more dedicated, somewhat separate team that focuses on it. And they have built a truly decentralized exchange. So that allows you to swap NFTs and cryptocurrencies in any combination with each other. There's no sort of internal blockchain. It's live on Ethereum and Polygon right now. And that launched earlier this year. And we do have goals to unite the two, but basically this year we've taken under quite a large replatforming project. So we've been really overhauling our infrastructure to be truly decentralized, to continue to provide easy minting and e-commerce, NFT commerce functionality for creators, but with a much heavier focus on moving away from the first priority is not as much ease as it is honoring people being able to be self-sovereign and selling NFTs and owning their communities at their own brand level. So that's the direction that we're moving in, and then wanting to unite that with tools that we've built with on the NFT protocol side as well for secondary trading and whatnot.
So it seems to me like you're solving one of the bigger problems out there, which is user interface and kind of ease of use when engaging with this technology. It brings to mind something Steve Jobs said years ago, which was that people don't really want to know all of the technology that goes into the making of a computer. They just want the computer to work and to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish using the computer. So I think with blockchain, it's similar. Not everybody needs to know about all the technology that goes into what makes a blockchain work and what keeps it safe and decentralized and yada, yada, yada. Creators just want to be creators and use the blockchain as a means to empower themselves and a way to get paid and a way to verify their art. And it seems like with Blockparty, you're helping them do that, but you're keeping it relatively simple, both for the creators and the users, while at the same time on the back end, you're trying to create something that's more decentralized to kind of abide by the ethos of the blockchain. Would that be a fair way to assess what you're doing at Blockparty?
Definitely. Again, some of the values that we're really focusing on that are really guiding us, aside from really embracing decentralization, are really empowerment, and empowerment not just by saying like, hey, let's just slap blockchain technology on it, but empowerment more in the sense of, we recognize that there are a lot of NFT marketplaces. They're popping up 25 new ones a day. And granted, there's already, the leading, let's say top, we'll say even 20, the ones you hear about the most is probably like 5 to 10, but there's a hefty amount of people who are struggling. And so unless you already have an established community in Web3 or even Web2, really in any social online presence capacity, you're just I always this always ends up happening, but you're sort of floating in the open sea of OpenSea, right? It's really hard to get discovered. And so visibility and promotion is something that we find and hear from creators is something that they really struggle with the most. Yep. And so we're trying to figure out, how can we help them differentiate themselves more and unite things more with their own brand level. We've done a lot of drops. Drops have been a big focus that we've offered in the past, and I'm sure we'll always be doing that, because I think it's something we really just are passionate about and really enjoy, and that co-creation and excitement with more established or up and coming creators. But yeah, we really want to help people be able to differentiate themselves and promote themselves really effectively.
Yeah, I think that's another big problem that you're helping to solve. A lot of people get into NFTs because they like this idea of there being no sort of middle person or gatekeeper between the artists and their fans. But then again, that artist still needs fans to be there. I used to work in the music industry, and what I noticed about a lot of artists is that they really weren't into sort of the business side of things or marketing themselves. Maybe it was like a different side of the brain type thing. They just wanted to be creative and have someone else handle the business, or maybe they felt like a sellout if they were talking business or marketing or something like that. So it's good that these artists have someone like you and Blockparty to help them build this community to market their product. This is really essential. It's a big part of the equation. So what I would like to hear from you is sort of, what sorts of results have you seen? You're out here on this mission to empower people. What have you seen happen thus far with your work at Blockparty?
So one thing I'll give a lot of credit to Vlad, our CEO. One thing I think he's done really well is tap into some really promising Web2 creators early and onboard them. And I think that's something he really loves, to sort of see that transition, like, let's bring you in, embrace this tech, and then they just take it and run with it. So I'd say that, and then they are seeing sales, they're adopting the technology, they're really like embracing the space. And I think that feels like really, I think the biggest success is that you've been able to transition into this community Web3 technology, and then be able to actually see financial success, see, your own brand growth success. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Certainly we've had sales on our platform, and going forward, I think our intention truly is to help really elevate creators and musicians, or artists and musicians. And that's really baked into the DNA of our company. I'd actually say probably almost to a fault at times across the leadership. Everyone is either a creator themselves or just so deeply passionate about artists and musicians. Like, we just genuinely love it, and we really think that blockchain technology is like a really beautiful fit for helping them. I mean, even looking at stats like payouts for if you look at YouTube or Spotify, I've seen so many of these charts. Like, if you compare, I'm going to get these numbers wrong, so please don't quote me, but it's something like, like 30,000 creators earned like, $3 million with NFTs in like a year, compared to, like $1 from Spotify or $30 from Spotify in like 5 years. Again, these numbers are not accurate, but it was just a crazy difference to see. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems kind of ridiculous when you think about platforms like Spotify or Apple Music, where artists have to get like 1 billion spins to make $1 or something like that. It doesn't really seem like it does much to empower the artist financially. So you've talking a lot about sustainable social systems and about empowerment. And I wanted to know if that you feel that helping these artists and creators on an individual level is adding to that idea of a sustainable social system. Does that sort of individual empowerment, are each one of those people you empower a piece of that sustainable social system?
Absolutely. I think there's one sort of, I guess, philosophical topic that comes up a lot for me, like in thinking about aligned incentives. I think communities can really empower themselves. I mean, you look at a DAO, it's a beautifully perfect example of a group of people with shared aligned interests and incentives to actually show up every day and then to put in value to then get out value. So it really is this beautiful like circular economy. And I think that is what a social sustainable system is. And I don't think DAOs necessarily are like the only answer to it, but it is abstractly, kind of that's what it is. We all agree that there's something here that I'm incentivized to keep putting value into. And when I keep doing that, I get something out of it. If I have no incentivization, probably not going to do it because I have to focus on getting my basic needs met. Once I get those met, I need to think about my future needs. So what's really going to be that like hook for people? And that's very interesting. I think blockchain tech is really easy for that. Even thinking about perpetual royalties, collector royalties, not just creator royalties. I mean, there's tons of stuff. And, we've seen so many implementations of these things already. So yeah, a lot of good work being done there.
Yeah, I think DAOs are a super interesting entity in the crypto space. They are definitely far from perfect, but I think that it's been really interesting to see people experimenting with them and to see people joining them and casting their vote within these DAOs. And I think it's definitely part of this next evolution of crypto. Speaking of the word crypto, I know that it can be a little bit cringe, right? When we think of crypto or even NFTs, sometimes we get the connotation of like crypto bros or the dudes that are in the space. And we know that the space is kind of not as inclusive as some might make it out to be or claim that it is. There's definitely more men than women in the space. And I'll come back to that in a second. But when I think about crypto, one of the things that I think about a lot is how retail kind of came to this financial space before major institutions. And these major institutions oftentimes have kind of the old form of hierarchy or like the old boy clubs. So do you think that crypto in this space, in the crypto NFT space, do you think that there's this possibility of maybe they're becoming a closer to an equal number of men and women in the space because we're so early and because these old institutions are not here dominating the space yet?
I always like this question, but I feel like my answer is never particularly interesting because I think it's hard to sort of go outside of, the mainstream answers and questions here. But basically, my feeling is this. The people who had the kind of financial flexibility to early on get involved in this and take like sweeping market shares of this were people who already had money to take on the risk. And largely those people were largely like white men with money in tech or finance. So that if you actually look at like the breakdown of like wallets and funds and where they live in any capacity, it's largely in that demographic. Even if I look at work, there's more women coming in and that's great, but there's definitely, again, people who are more just like have access to this knowledge, to this technology, is the classic social structures that we've lived in and been talking about for decades now. The one thing that I will say, because definitely there are women, being promoted in not just Web3, but also Web2 and beyond. The one thing that I do think is unique about this time, I'll say, that gives me some hope for not just distribution to women, but any, all the demographics around the world, is that more than ever, more people have access to information and internet and the tools to educate themselves than ever in the past. And because of that, everyone has this more immediate access to this technology and to get involved.
Yep.
And I think more women are able to, and not again, just women, just any other demographic that is a diverse demographic has a higher chance of being able to get involved more quickly than they have in the past. There's just less barriers to entry, and less gatekeeping. So I think that does poise like a unique ability, in addition to like, yes, entities that do already exist and women who already are involved, which are awesome and very passionate. And I'm very proud of them and excited to be alongside of them in this movement, for sure.
You bring up a lot of great points there. I was just actually listening to an interview with Wendy O, who I believe is the largest female crypto YouTuber or YouTube influencer out there. And she talked about, she mentioned something that was really kind of sad to hear, was that when she provides analysis to different entities or corporations or people, I guess it's paid, these entities take her more seriously when there's a man on the call with her or a man in the room with her. And that was really disheartening for me to hear. So a lot of people kind of extol the virtues of blockchain and the fact that everybody gets access to this, because if you have a computer and an internet connection, then you can get access to crypto. My question, I guess, is that short-sighted? Yes, sure, the access is there, but do we still have these bigger sort of social dynamic issues to deal with between men and women in this world of finance that most people want to kind of overlook when they kind of talk about the virtues of like what the technology brings to people?
Yes, absolutely, 100%, without a doubt. I mean, even if you look at stats, like I think it's something around only 2% of women founders actually get funding from VC or fundraising. I know a number of my partner and a number of other people I know are quite entrepreneurial. And it's really crazy. And it's absolutely, I've seen it be faced time and again. If there's a man in a room, you'll have a much better time of getting funded. And this actually really comes back to the topic of aligned incentives, right? If you have power, you have safety, you have security, and the systems that exist, they probably want to protect people that look like them and feel like them. And it's scary to spread that out. And recognize that like your way of thinking could be diluted if you now give power over to some other way of thinking. And so I think it's very challenging to like deeply chip away at that. I think we're doing our best, and I do have hope, and I see like people boots on the ground making changes. And again, I deeply admire and am inspired by them. But it's tough. It's really, like deeply ingrained.
That was one of the best answers that I've heard to a question like that in all of my time listening to interviews like this, or in this crypto YouTube world. So thank you. That was great. I want to talk a little bit about pseudonymity in crypto. There are people that say that crypto is all about the value that you offer, that you can, exist behind an avatar on Twitter or wherever on the internet. But you can gain notoriety and you could kind of gain prominence in the space by offering value to people, by bringing something to the space that's valuable to the people in it. Do you think that there's any truth to that? Do you think that pseudonymity really does solve these issues around gender, race, age, whatever? Is this something we should be looking more deeply at, or be looking at through a certain lens that a lot of people seem to not want to look at it through?
Okay, I'm gonna give a quick anecdote, which may or may not get me canceled, but I don't think it will. So basically, I have this friend who's Asian American from back in college, and she's doing amazing. She's an actress and killing it at life. And she's also always been a very big activist. And I remember having this chat with her once where I felt like the more that you wanted to sort of shed light on and raise awareness about a particular group or demographic, you're sort of creating this like othering somehow by doing that. So like there's this group of this people and like everybody else. Yeah. And you're creating that separation. So by putting more emphasis on it, you're doing that. But the problem is that I recognized and was sort of like questioning at this time was, if you don't acknowledge it, nothing's gonna change. So you have to like face that otheringness to actually acknowledge it, to like move through it, fix it, change something. So if it goes unacknowledged, nothing's going to change. So all these people behind the masks, bringing it back to these, anonymous people, I do think it's great in some ways, because that woman who wouldn't get that funding or respect, if she's speaking the language, she's doing whatever that feels respectable to whomever, doesn't matter who she is, she will be respected. Even if people don't know she's a she, that can totally benefit. There's people, like, I've hired contractors on the internet for things and they kept calling me sir, and I have, actually, this might also get me canceled, I haven't corrected them at times because I'm like, I might get better service because they just are assuming I'm a sir. I mean, it's kind of messed up like that I even participate. And I, just being honest about it, like, this is some real, you can bleep that out. But I think it can be good and bad. So I think it can be really empowering for someone who wants to work under a pen name, right? Like, female writers back in the day, right? And people will actually buy their book, let alone burn their book, whatever. Can be bad on the other hand, though. If you have someone who's out there like bullying people, that's not good. If you have a group of people that you claim is diverse coming together, forming a DAO to help women, and all of them are white dudes, like, that's not great. So I think like most things in life, it has good sides and bad sides.
Wow, that was a great nuanced answer. I appreciate it. So the last question I'd like to ask today is, what advice would you like to give to people who want to get into the NFT or crypto space? And let me provide a little context for what I mean by that. So I think part of my job, technically my job now here at Finder, but also my job, what I felt like on a personal level, when people would come and ask me about how to get into crypto and like, are they going to get rich and all this kind of stuff, is I would try to find this right balance of encouraging them to get into it and to maybe start doing their homework or their research in the space. Because maybe it turns out they are really good at investing, or they're really good in this NFT space and they do become wealthy doing it. I think you want to leave the door open to that kind of thinking, but also maybe provide some sort of warning or some sort of information that might be really important for them to keep in mind in terms of risk management. So my question to you is, again, what sort of advice do you give to people when they come to you, when they're looking to get into the space? What do you tell them?
A couple of things. I think a great way to start is setting up a wallet. It is like your sort of ticket, your key, your pathway to engaging with many places, and educate yourself about the wallets to use, safety and security, first and foremost, scams, you name it. I think second, or maybe first step, is really just read, like, do some basic education, find some resources, go to the big platforms, go to, Coinbase or NFT Now, or, any news site at all. There's millions that are reputable and relatively clearly reputable. So really educate yourself, get a wallet, follow best practices. And then from there, I think you really need to understand that the space is still quite volatile, and that's the biggest thing to understand. So you cannot take on risk that you cannot afford to lose, especially if you are new. Don't be stupid. So that's the main thing. So go buy a cheap NFT on Polygon. Go start learning, following projects you want. Maybe check out DAOs. Maybe they'll start giving tokens from whatever their DAO structure is to go participate there. Do things that are not putting you in deep risk. You don't want to start there, because then it's going to be really bad. And then as you get more educated, more savvy, more confident, you can take on more risk if you want to. You might not even need to take on risk. Maybe you get a job in this space. Maybe you find some way to monetize with NFTs and you're making NFTs, So just don't take on risks that you can't handle, educate yourself, and get involved. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think that's a great place to close. I really appreciate all these real kind of clear, sober, nuanced answers. They were really fantastic, so thank you. I really liked a lot of what you had to say about empowerment and aligned incentives, and also this idea of responsibility, and not just responsibility when it comes to the dollar amount that you choose to invest in this place, but maybe your responsibility to vote in a DAO, or to or to learn more once you do invest. Taking some sort of responsibility and being accountable in this space, I think, is a really, really important lesson that can be learned if you come into it with the right mindset. So I thank you for encouraging that. I wish you nothing but continued success. I hope you get to stop by the office sometime. I would love to meet you in person. And again, we sincerely appreciate your taking the time to do this today. And we wish you and Blockparty nothing but the best and the continued success. So thank you so much.